Good morning. This is the way to a wonderful life. Please know with me now, right now, there is a power within you that can lift your life to its highest level. It can change illness into health. It can bring peace amidst turmoil. It can bring success out of failure and victory out of defeat. It can bring companionship and happiness out of loneliness. It responds to you. For this is the power that dwells within you, and so it is. Amen. Thank you for joining me this morning for the Way to a Wonderful Life. I am Reverend Dr. Henry Lee Bates, coming to you live this morning from Palm Springs, California, teaching from the philosophy of the Mastermind Jesus and the wisdom of the ancients found in the evolutionary science of mind. This program is not pre-recorded, nor is it edited. It is live. For more information about this ministry, please visit www.revbates.tv or www.revbatesontheradio.org. You can also find me on youtube.com by going to youtube.com and putting in the search box the Way to a Wonderful Life channel. That's the Way to a Wonderful Life channel, and you'll find over 90 of my radio broadcasts that you can listen to 24/7 in both English and Spanish. You can also go to MSN, Yahoo, Bing, and Google and put in the search box Reverend Henry Bates, that's B-A-T-E-S, and you'll find everything you want to find out about this ministry. Now, this is a healing and teaching ministry where we go beyond religion and we focus on those simple yet profound spiritual principles given to us by the Mastermind Jesus so that we can believe in our prayer and the answer to it. For we believe and we know that God responds to us by corresponding to our faith and our belief that with God, all good things are possible. With God, all good things are possible. And with faith in God, all things are possible. And to those who have faith, all things are possible. We know this, we believe it, we accept it as the truth, and we begin to live to that principle right now, right where we are. Once again, you can send me your prayer requests, your questions, your comments about this program, and you can send a faith offering or tithe in support of this radio ministry, and you can do that from the website revbates.tv or revbatesontheradio.org, and you can also mail those to Reverend Henry Bates, that's B-A-T-E-S, P.O. Box 1173, that's P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. Once again, that's P.O. Box 1173, Palm Springs, California, 92263. And you can leave me a telephone message in the Los Angeles area at 818-476-0088 or in Palm Springs at 760-778-5677. Once again, this is the Way to a Wonderful Life, coming to you live this morning from Palm Springs, California. This program is not pre-recorded, nor is it edited, and our Way to a Wonderful Life message for today is titled Money, Money, Money. And we want to find within our own mind, our own heart, and our own soul the right connection with money. We want to find the right relationship, we could say, with money. So we're going to begin with a prayer affirmation from the mystical Ernest Holmes, who wrote this way back in 1926 or somewhere around that time. But this is just as relevant today as it ever was. We must find within our mind a conviction and faith that we do have. We do have the evidence of things not seen within our own mind, our heart, and our soul, when our prayer is for that which will make life a better life for not only ourselves but for all those around us. So let's bring these ideas into our mind this morning. Don't try to repeat these. Don't try to say them after me. Just let these words move through your mind as the truth for you. If you want to read them later, you will find them posted on revbates.tv on the message page, the weekly message page, where you can read them, you can print them, you can underline the words that are significant to you so that we can get to that conviction. We don't have to convince God to give us the abundant life. Jesus said, you give us this day our daily bread. We just must convince ourselves that we can accept it, that we're deserving, that we're open and receptive, and just let whatever it is that we require, whatever it is that will give us that feeling of living in the abundant life, living in the Spirit. We know that the Spirit lives in us, that we must live in the Spirit of that knowing. And so as we take these words into our mind, we're going to get into that Spirit. Here we go. These words are from the mystical Ernest Holmes. I am surrounded by pure spirit, by God the living Spirit. My thought is God thought, and it is the law unto that thing whereunto it is spoken. Everything that I do shall be a success. I am fed, guided, and inspired by the living Spirit of love and of right action. I am compelled to move in the right direction and to always know what to do, where, and how to do it. I am surrounded by right action. I am filled with the consciousness of right action. Right action is success in all that I undertake to do. I am successful in all my undertakings, and I am compensated for all my efforts. I am surrounded by substance, which is always taking the form of supply and always manifesting itself to me in the form of whatever my need may be at the time. I always have an abundance of money and an abundance of whatever it takes to make life happy and opulent. There is a continuous movement toward me of supply of money of all that I need to express the fullest life, happiness, and action. I have an inner understanding of my place in the universe. I know that it is unique. The divine has not incarnated in anyone else in just the same individual way that it has in me. I am unique and forever individualized. Therefore, I do not need to imitate anyone or to long for the good that belongs to another. All is now mine and is now manifest in my experience. I do not compete with anyone, for I am and remain forever myself. This self is united with all selves, but is always an individual and a unique self. There is that in me which all people recognize as worthwhile and desirable, and everyone whom I meet loves this self of mine and recognizes its worth. I draw all toward me, and those whom I can benefit and those who can benefit me are irresistibly drawn toward me. I do not strain, will, or coerce, I know. The truth makes me free from the fear of poverty or bondage and emancipates me from the thought of limitation. I see that money, like everything else that is desirable, must be a spiritual idea, and I know that I have this idea right in my mind at this moment. I shall always have this idea of abundance. It is mine, and I take it. The opportunity for self-expression and compensation is always open to me, and I am at all times compelled to know, accept, and operate upon this opportunity. I have abundance because I am abundance. All that the Father hath is mine, and this is the truth for me now, right now. And that's from the great and mystical Ernest Holmes, from his classic book, The Science of Mind and Spirit. There is something about money that is irresistible to so many people. It has given power far beyond that which it is possible for it to do. Many people believe that all their problems in life would be solved if they just had a lot of money. And many people think that money gives them security, and so insecurity is felt when it is lacking. Many people have money. When people have money, they feel healthier and happier, and just the opposite when they don't have it or feel their money is tight. I believe this irresistibility factor concerning money has a deeper meaning for us than probably most consider consciously. In my early years as a spiritual practitioner, I had an appointment with a woman who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She's sitting in front of me. She has breast cancer. She's been diagnosed. And that's the issue that I'm confronted with. When I asked her what she would like for me to pray for, she said $1 million. $1 million. I was very surprised by this, as I was expecting her to ask for prayer for health or physical healing or even perhaps peace of mind with her situation. And I will have to admit that my prayer work with her was probably not very effective, as I just couldn't seem to get past the shock I felt when she said $1 million. Yet now I understand the psychology behind the request. money is something that we can see, feel, and touch, while spiritual healing is an unknown until the work is made manifest. Consciously, we feel security in the things that we can see, feel, and touch, but this will always be a false security, or at best, a very temporary one. And we can go to Charles Fillmore's classic book, Prosperity, and we can read, "There is a kingdom of abundance of all things, and it may be found by those who seek it and are willing to comply with its laws." Jesus said that it is hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And this does not mean that it is hard because of his wealth, for the poor man gets in no faster and no easier. It is not money, but the thoughts men hold about money, its source, its ownership, and its use that keep them out of the kingdom. Men's thoughts about money are like their thoughts about all possessions. So often they believe that things coming out of the earth are theirs to claim and control as individual property and may be hoarded away and depended on, regardless of how much other men may be in need of them. The same belief is prevalent among both the rich and the poor, and if the two classes were suddenly to change places, the inequalities of wealth would not be remedied. Only a fundamental change in the thoughts of wealth could do that. That's from Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity, and you can buy that book at Amazon.com or you can buy it at ProsperityNetwork.com. It is with the persistency of faith that we draw to us all the money and everything necessary that we require to live the way to a wonderful life. It is faith that gives us the evidence of things not seen that can fulfill the desires of our hearts when our intentions are aligned with the nature of our source, God, Infinite Spirit. The ancients in their wisdom have informed us that nothing is ours to hoard or to possess forever, that all that God has made available to us is ours to use and to share in making the world a better place for all of us. This is why the mastermind Jesus told the rich young man that he must leave all that he had and follow him. That is, follow Jesus in believing that God does give us each day our daily bread, that our faith in God is our sufficiency in all things, that our faith in God is our sufficiency in all things. So we realize that whatever it was that the young man had that gave him that sense of wealth, that it would get old and it would get of less value. That his wealth was, and the material, our wealth and the material is a temporary wealth. And so we realized that Jesus was telling him the absolute truth. Follow me and realize with me that our Father which art in heaven, that you give us this day our daily bread. We don't have to depend on the things that we've accumulated, but depend on that spirit of faith within us that will give us this day our daily bread through the activity of the presence, the power, and the intelligence of God. Give us this day. I accept this day my daily bread. I accept today that God is giving me this day my daily bread, that God is giving me health, that God is giving me wealth, that God is giving me success, that God is giving me creative ideas that prosper me, that God is giving me loving companionship, that God is giving me the right ideas, the right guidance, the right wisdom to enjoy this thing called life in a greater way. So once again, let's go back to some words of the great Charles Fillmore. He writes, "We want to make this substance that faith has brought to our mind enduring and abiding, so that we do not lose it when the banks fail or men talk of hard times." Can anybody can relate to that? I think we can all relate to that. When the banks fail or people talk of hard times, we're always hearing that. We're always hearing about how many people are unemployed, but very seldom do we hear about how many people are employed. We're always hearing about which banks failed, but we're not always hearing about all the banks that are making major, magnificent profits. We're not always hearing about the people that are hiring people and the people that are the companies that are expanding and growing. Well, we hear about are the companies that close down or downsize. We must identify with the surplus. We must identify with the abundance. We must identify with the wealth in our economy and not let ourselves get trapped and shackled to that idea that the hard times bring hard times into our own personal experience. It's up to us to choose. We are always given a choice. We are always being given a choice. What is it that we believe? What is it that we accept for ourselves personally? Yea, though 10,000 may fall at my right side, I shall fear no evil, we can read in the Scripture, which means no matter what people in the world are thinking and believing and accepting for themselves, I am only confronted with that which I accept and choose to accept for myself. We must realize that every day. So let's go back to these words of Charles Fillmore and get back on track here this morning. We want to make this substance, that is this unformed substance, which is God, waiting to magnetize and energize that which we want and bring it into our experience through faith. We want to make this substance that faith has brought to our mind enduring and abiding, so that we do not lose it when the banks fail or men talk of hard times. We must have in our finances a consciousness of the permanency of the omnipresent substance as it abides in us. Some wealthy families succeed in holding their wealth, while others dissipate it in one generation because they do not have the consciousness of abiding substance. For many of us, there is either a feast or a famine in the matter of money, and we need the abiding consciousness, that permanency. There is no reason why we should not have a continuous, even flow of substance, both in income and outgo. If we have freely received, we must also freely give and keep the substance going, confident in our understanding that our supply is unlimited and that it is always right at hand in the omnipresent mind of God, in the omnipresent mind of God. And so we realize that these words of the great Charles Fillmore, that he's telling the truth that is so prevalent in our society, so prevalent in so many of our lives, that we either have a feast or a famine with money. So many times I have people that come to me and say, well, just as soon as I feel like I'm getting a little ahead, all of a sudden something comes up and all my money is gone again. That there's always something that gets me right back to where I was, lacking money, lacking the wherewithal to feel the joy of life. And so we must know that we must lift up our consciousness faith to a higher idea and realize that just like the law of gravity responds to us, that the law of God is responding to us by corresponding to our faith and our belief and what it does. So what it does is give us this day our daily bread, but we must recognize this as a truth for us. We must lift up our mind until we identify with it personally and realize that each and every one of us are living this unique expression of life, but God is giving us all the freedom to choose every moment of every day, whatever it is that we choose to experience. That's why we read in the Scripture, pray without ceasing, because it's telling us that every time we think, every thought that we dwell on, every image that comes to our mind, that we accept as true, whether it be a negative or a positive, becomes our reality, that we're to be conscious of what we're thinking, conscious of what we're imaging in our mind, conscious of what we're dwelling on, conscious of what we're accepting as true. If we want to accept hard times, we're going to get hard times. If we want to accept that we're dependent on something in the world, then we're going to get that dependence on something in the world, and that something in the world is a very temporary power. Be in the world, but not of the world, Jesus said. Disconnect your mind to the power of the world and connect your mind with the power of God, with the power of prayer, with the power of knowing, with the power of choosing, that you can speak your word and that God will give you this day your daily bread, and you're not dependent on hoarding anything, because every day God is your all-sufficiency, God, infinite spirit, your faith in God. That with faith all things are possible, and to those who have faith all things are possible, and in that faith of all things are possible, God does give us our daily bread. God is our sufficiency in all things. So we want to bring that into our mind, and we want to accept it as the truth for us. It should never be our intention to think of having money, but having the ability to circulate money that will give us the increase both in income and in our ability to give it out. Our giving should be with the conscious recognition that as we use money, we are prospering others, whether it be in the form of a gift, a purchase, or an investment. Hoarding money or attempting to hold on to as much of it as possible is selfish and limits our ability to realize an increase. We may get a temporary increase, but never the permanency that entering into the divine circulation affords us. The truth is that as we freely give, we shall freely receive. Our giving and receiving are the effects of our faith, the evidence of things not seen, and this we must establish in our consciousness. Let's go back to those words of the great and mystical Ernest Holmes. I am surrounded by pure spirit, by God, the living spirit. Not only are we surrounded by the living spirit, that God lives in us. We read in the scripture, in him we live and move and have our being, so we know that this him is spirit. As Jesus said, the Father is a spirit that must be worshipped in spirit and in truth. So what is the truth? The truth is that God is omnipresent. As we read in the book of Isaiah, besides me there is none other. Besides me there is no thing, but we're always giving power to the no thing. We're always giving power to the nothingness. We're always giving power to the lack when we let it grip us in its grasp of fear and concern and worry and doubt. So let's let loose of all those things and lift up our consciousness into that consciousness of realizing and believing and accepting the truth that I am surrounded by pure spirit, by God, the living spirit. My thought is God thought. It is the thought of God moving through my mind to the level of my acceptance and awareness of what God's thought is for me. And right now, everything that I do shall be a success because I am fed, guided, and inspired by the living spirit of love and right action. And what does right action mean? That which brings forth a greater good for not only ourselves, but for all those around us. Every time we buy anything, every time we purchase anything, every time we invest money, every time we give a gift, we're prospering other people, and we're opening that channel of the flow of money and all things good into our life in a greater way. We don't want to be rich and unhappy. We don't want to be rich and unhappy. Unhealthy. We don't want to be rich and lonely. We don't want to be rich and depressed. We want to be wealthy and happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's the thing we want to be. That's the thing we want to receive. That's the life we want to live because that's the wonderful life, healthy, wealthy, and wise. So we can say, I always have an abundance of money and an abundance of whatever it takes to make life happy and opulent. There is a continuous movement toward me. I'm letting God give it to me now, a supply of money, of all that I need to express the fullest life, the fullest happiness, and the fullest activity of God in my life. God in my life. So let's realize this for ourselves, and let's begin to feel it as the truth for us. And as we do, we will find, as Ernest Holmes writes, there is that in me which all people recognize as worthwhile and desirable, and everyone whom I meet loves this self of mine and recognizes its worth. I draw all toward me, and those whom I can benefit, and those who can benefit me are irresistibly drawn to me. I do not strain, will, or coerce. I do not try to fight for my good. I just know that God is giving me. God is giving me my health. God is giving me my wealth. God is giving me my joy. God is giving me my loving companionship. God is giving me my success. God is giving me whatever it is that will prosper me and prosper those around me. The truth makes me free from the fear of poverty or bondage and emancipates me from the thought of limitation and lack. I see that money, like everything else that is desirable, must be a spiritual idea, and I know that I have this idea right in my mind at this moment, and I shall always have this idea of abundance. It is mine, and I take it. As Jesus said, I have come to tell you that you may have life and you may have it more abundantly, but you won't have it more abundantly as long as you depend on the things of the world, as long as you're depending on persons, places, and things, rather than the Almighty, rather than the one power, the one presence, and the one intelligence who rules supreme in the universe, and that is the power of God. As Jesus said, once again, I want to repeat this, the Father is a spirit and must be worshipped in spirit and in truth. In other words, worship means to give our attention to know that God is our all in all, that God is our everything, that God is our guarantee that we can live the abundant life, the joyful life, and the wonderful life. Once again, let's go back to those words of the great Charles Fillmore before we leave this broadcast today. He writes, there is a kingdom of abundance of all things. We can see it all in the world in which we live. And then if you don't believe me, go down to Rodeo Drive and look through the store windows. You'll see that abundance. There is a kingdom of abundance. Look at the cars parked on the street. You'll see that abundance. There is a kingdom of abundance of all things, and it may be found by those who seek it and are willing to comply with its laws. Jesus said that it is hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. This does not mean that it is hard because of his wealth, for the poor man gets in no faster and no easier. It is not money, but the thoughts men hold about money, its source, its ownership, and its use that keep them out of the kingdom. Men's thoughts about money are like their thoughts about all possessions. They believe that things coming out of the earth are theirs to claim and control as individual property and may be hoarded away and depended on regardless of how much other men may be in need of them. The same belief is prevalent among both rich and poor, and even if the two classes were suddenly to change places, the inequalities of wealth would not be remedied, for only a fundamental change in the thoughts of wealth can do that, and so it is. Amen. We know that is the truth. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Charles Fillmore. So once again, it should never be our intention to think of having money, but having the ability to let it flow through our life experience, to let ourselves be a divine law of circulation unto God, to circulate money, and that will give us the increase both in income and in our ability to give it out. Our giving should be with the conscious recognition that as we use money, we are prospering others, whether it be in the form of a gift, a purchase, or an investment. We must pause and take the time to realize that we're prospering people. When you pay for those groceries at Ralph's today, realize that you're prospering that grocery clerk, you're prospering the people that built that store, you're prospering the people that wrap those packages, that put the labels on those packages. You're prospering all those people, and you're part of this divine circulation. And bring that into your mind. I am one with the divine circulation that God moves through me to prosper myself and to prosper others, that God is living in me, as me, and for me to give me the right ideas, the right inspiration, the right encouragement, to recognize that God is my all-sufficiency in all things, and that God is giving me this day my daily bread. So let's realize that, let's bring it into our mind, and let's know it's the truth for us. And as the lyrics of the old Abba song goes, money, 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 always sunny in the rich man's world. And this is a truth for those who are rich in faith and sustain a spirit of generosity. And we know it's the truth, and we believe it's the truth. We accept it as the truth, and so it is. Amen. Once again, I want to thank you for being with me today. It's been my great pleasure, and I hope you join me for my next broadcast right here on right here on KTYM AM 1460 radio, where you can find the Way to a Wonderful Life broadcast on Sunday mornings, 7:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday evenings. And you can find us in Maryland, Delaware, South Jersey, and parts of D.C. Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on KDI AM 840 radio, your ministry station, on Saturday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time on WINB.com, the international broadcasting station, and you can also find that on your shortwave radio. Once again, this has been The Way to a Wonderful Life, coming to you live from Palm Springs, California. I am Reverend Dr. Henry Lee Bates. I've been teaching from the philosophy of the Mastermind Jesus and the wisdom of the ancients and the mystics of our 19th century, 20th century, and all the way back to the book of Isaiah and all the way back to the book of Genesis, where we know that we are created in the image and the likeness of God, and that image, likeness of God is part of God's power, part of God's spirit, and part of God's intelligence that's incarnated in each and every one of us. And let's realize that we are all individualizations of the one spirit, that God has imprinted on each and every one of us a unique set of fingerprints. Even though the world has billions of people, no two people have the same fingerprints. That's how unique we are. And so as we choose to live this life in our own unique, creative, and wonderful way, we know that God will respond to us by giving us everything necessary, giving us the guidance, the inspiration, and the encouragement to stand up and speak up for that which is ours to have, ours to be, ours to do, and ours to live to the glory of God. Once again, it's been my great pleasure to have you with me today. Please go to revbates.tv or revbatesontheradio.org, where you can find everything you want to find out about this ministry. And you can also send me your prayer requests, questions, comments about this program. And you can also send a faith offering or a tithe, which I will be deeply, deeply grateful for in support of this radio ministry. And you can also go to youtube.com and put in the search box, The Way to a Wonderful Life channel. That's The Way to a Wonderful Life channel, where you'll find over 90 of my radio broadcasts that you can listen to 24/7 in both English and Spanish.